All right, guys. You guys ready to go?
Yes, we are.
Based on what's going on, and even some of the people know this, you all, I think, are a part of history today. There's some things happening finally where people within and outside the intelligence community have had enough. A lot of former NSA, I know Bill Binney and others, NSA, CIA people like me, they've weaponized our intelligence agencies. The CIA and the NSA have not just been spying on us through the NSA domestic surveillance program, they're now spying on members of Congress. The Organization for Action, OFA, Obama's organization, is doing unbelievable abuses with their remaining connections to power. I'll talk about Hillary Clinton later. She's a lot more than people know she is. So you're a part of history in that we're seeing a coalescence of a lot of movements coming together. The movement of former and current intelligence officers, the current ones we won't mention, that are sick and tired of our intelligence agencies being weaponized against the people. Fed up. I happen to be one of them. I've been saying this since 2012. We have the voter fraud experts who are looking into some voter fraud, and they've got some pretty concrete evidence there. People don't know a lot of those machines are owned by Saudi Arabia, our voting machine. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So we've got those people joining us. We've got the Anons and Dr. Jerome Corsi, friend of mine, brilliant man. Let me just put in a plug for Killing the Deep State. I would get that and I would read it. I've been through the whole thing, and I can tell you he's spot on accurate. So everybody should read that book. And he did a masterful job in a very short period of time. So this is all coming together. All of these groups that used to be separate, and there were those of us who were individuals out doing this. Well, this is all coming together in one big movement. And the election of Donald Trump shows you the millions of Americans out there that are supporting this movement that's coming together. Hollywood and news, they try to make it look like they're the majority. They want to teach our kids in second grade that, hey, Johnny, you could be a little girl. Second graders. But they make it look like they're the majority because they put it in movies, Netflix films. They're not. They're 2 to 5% of the population. The rest are generally pretty good Americans that don't want their little son Johnny taught to think he's maybe a girl in the second grade. I mean, that's insane. But they make it look like they're in charge. Well, they're not. The movement, the revolution that started Donald Trump getting elected just goes to show you that they poked the bear. There's a big bear out there and they poked it. And it's waking up. So in my case, any of you know my humble story? A few of you maybe. I've got a lot of talks I've done out there. I crossed the shadow government head on and caught them in a cover-up. Stood up against the cover-up, and every time this happened, I said, no, they wouldn't do it again, but they broke into my house, they poisoned my family. This is all documented with doctors' diagnosis. The doc said, my oldest son, Joey, his system looked like he'd been exposed to a burst of radiation. I had exposed a CIA cover-up that they were trying to hide. They broke into our house, they painted chemicals on the ceiling, we were bugged, we were followed, I was threatened multiple times until I'd had just about enough. And I started seeing, I was a classifying authority. I also executed secrecy oaths. I was one of the bad guys. Well, I bound people to CIA secrecy agreements, which are for life, and you can go to jail if you violate them. I signed one of those myself. So all those people out there whose agreements I executed, they're like, wait a minute, now he's up exposing all this. Well, good. So I've seen the belly of the beast. I've seen the weaponization of intelligence. It is unconstitutional, and as I will show you, it's not just unconstitutional, it's a felony. When the NSA was spying on us, our computers, laptops, phones, everything, 1.5 million bits, 1.5 billion bits of information a day, that's a violation of what? The Fourth Amendment. That's a felony, multiple felonies. Anybody go to jail?
Nope.
No. Anybody indicted?
No.
Anybody ever made to look bad in the press? No. Welcome to the shadow government. So, the march, I guess, March, Operation Justice, anybody go to that? Yeah, God bless you, man. Good for you. Good for you. Good, awesome. And of course, you were behind that operation. Yeah, you're a hero.
I was part of it. I went down there to pass out flyers and be a part of it. Be a part of history there too.
You guys are heroes. Keep doing it because it's going to grow and grow and grow, and those marches are going to get. That's how every great movement starts. Is just like that with a spark. So keep doing it.
Yeah, we needed more people, definitely.
Yeah, and you know how that goes. The next one will be more advertised. The wave will get bigger, and you just main thing is just stay regular.
I think they're going to do it again. I mean, it's going to be happening again next
Good.
year.
We're planning another one already.
Good.
Now the people saw it.
Good.
More wanna get
That's how it's going to work. I always start off by saying this, tongue in cheek. I'm a recovering CI officer. It's taken me a few years to get over that, and I do go to a recovery program specifically for CI folks, but it's not a 12-step program. It's a 24-step program. And the first 12 steps we have to learn to tell the truth again, and that's the hardest part. And the rest is to get off the alcohol, because about over half of CI people are functional alcoholics, but that's the other side. But there are perks to being a CI. I don't like the term whistleblower. I just personally don't like that. I like patriot or I consider myself a constitutionalist. And when I saw them grossly and still grossly violating the Constitution, I had enough, because I swore an oath to that, both foreign and domestic enemies. Sadly, domestic is our problem lately. But I swore an oath to the death to uphold that. But there are some perks to being a CIA constitutional whistleblower. For example, my mail's open before I get it. You know, I mean, that's kind of nice. I got a package, it's already been opened. They've looked at it for me. And this is true. My cell phone turns itself on all by itself, especially the nights before I give these. Boop, it just comes on. Isn't that nice? I don't even have to press the button. So that's kind of cool. I get third-party logins into my computer all the time, and there's no third party anywhere near us. But they're popping into my computer. When I wrote From the Company of Shadows, my computer crashed 3 times, and I had a ghostwriter working at the time, and our computers crashed at the same time, and she was in Indiana.
Oh, wow.
So the last perk is I travel a lot, and if I get lost, there's always someone following me. I can go back and ask directions, and I'm good, no problem. So, and I have to tell you, a lot of that has actually happened. My house has been broken into. They painted a poisonous chemical on the ceiling. All the things that I thought the CIA would never do inside the U.S., they did. And sadly for them, having been trained by them, I caught them every single time. I have it on tape. I have chemical samples. We have signed affidavits, so much so that we forced the CIA to go to, the judge did, go to a mediated settlement, forcing the CIA to settle with me and our family for them being poisoned, which almost never happens. The CIA signed the settlement agreement, one of which was a letter of apology to me for what they'd done, and then a monetary amount for the medical bills for my family. So we thought it was all over, but what they did was they contacted my attorneys 3 days later, and they said, we're not going to abide by the legal settlement. And Clint, my attorney, said, what do you mean? That's a legal document. You can't just blow that off. They said this certain director said, not only if he doesn't take a fraction of the settlement with no apology, no letter, we're going to invoke the state secrets privilege, and we're going to seal, you tell him, we're going to seal his case so that if he talks about it to anyone, he's going to prison. And Clint called me, and I said, absolutely not. They signed, not only no, but H double toothpicks no. They signed a legal agreement, and they're going to abide by that. 1 week later, the CIA implemented the state secrets privilege on my case, sealed all the evidence, the doctor's diagnosis, the poisonings, the environmental studies that I had done. The environmentalist who did the study was shot in the head, execution style. All of that was suppressed under the state secrets privilege, and not even our Congressman Frank Wolf could have access to it. That's how the state secrets privilege works, and I'll talk about that. So I had a big decision to make. This was in 2012 when the book came out. Am I going to let this happen, or am I going to say enough is enough? You talk about tyranny. This is as bad as it gets. So I said, no. I even had my bags packed, ready to go to prison. I mean, really, I prepared. I'd watched some prison shows. You see how you navigate. I'm sick. I was ready to go. So I came out and I went to the Washington Post. And I said, I got a story for you. And when I talk about Operation Mockingbird later, anybody heard of that? It's still going on. I'll show you how. I called the Washington Post. It wasn't really the reporter's fault. He was being pressured by management. I told him, and I was careful. I was a classifying authority, so I know what to say and what not to. The Washington Post, as they do, went straight to the CIA and reported my contact. And the CIA recruited him, and he called me for the next 30 days trying to get classified information out of me, because as soon as I said anything, they come and get me. Washington Post, Mockingbird Post. Now owned by Jeff Bezos of Amazon. who has a $600 million contract with who?
The CIA.
The CIA. Everything goes full circle. So we were followed, vehicles parked outside my house. I was harassed for almost 10 years, but I'm still here because they know darn well there's nothing they could do because what they blacked out and what they put under the state secret privilege was illegal. Break-ins, poisonings, and on and on and on. We have kind of a stalemate, and I'll talk about the book later. But it has not been easy. It's been real stressful, and it took a real toll on our family, especially my ex-wife. Really, I mean, no woman should be subjected to being followed, her house being broken, and things like that, and our marriage couldn't survive it.
Messages received
And
from Greg Hansen.
well, that's the chief of staff for the president. I'm only kidding. It's called Turn Your Phone Off, bozo. Hold on just a second. You ever have a friend that sends you more text than you would like?
Yeah, we all have them.
All right, stand by. We all have one of those, don't
Yeah,
we?
we do.
Yeah, I just got up this morning. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. All right, hold on a second. We usually use this for the books downstairs, but she's off. Regarding this, everything I do is public because that's my safety net. If we have other meetings where these don't go inside the room, if you're carrying one of these, this is a bug. It's the best bug ever made, actually. And you see that mine is off. They can turn the microphone on remotely, even though your phone is off.
Yeah.
So,
Your location services are turned off.
what's that?
What if your location services are turned off? But the phone's on still?
Still, yeah,
How do they do that?
satellite. And that's all I'll say
So
there.
it's still, even though you turn your location services off, your GPS is still out.
Airplane
The
mode.
911 thing, they say it's always.
Airplane mode, some people think that's safe, it's not safe.
What about with battery out?
I was about to say that. The only way is to take the battery out and put it at least 3 feet from the phone. Now, guess what they're making now? Razor phones, right? Where you can't take the battery out. What? Don't get one of those. Or keep it in a shielded aluminum grounded can with a lid on it, or an ammo can. Because it's hard for EMF to get through tin. What about what? Lead is even better. The lead thing is best. Yeah, lead is best.
What about silver?
Silver's good. Yeah. And you can also eat it. It's good for getting rid of viruses. Okay. All right. So let's get going here so we can get through this. We're going to be talking about primarily the unconstitutional or the weaponized use of government secrecy. Our government is out of control. Their power is in the power of unconstitutional secrecy and doing things that they don't tell not only us, the American people, about, they don't tell our congressmen, our only representatives, about either. It's now a way of doing business and has been since 1947, 48, went into operation when the CIA was created. It was given covert operational approval without congressional approval. It was written in by Truman, who later regretted it. The CIA's dark ops is unconstitutional. There's no law anywhere in the National Security Act of 1947 that says the CIA has any legal authority to engage in any covert operation anywhere. But they've been doing it for years, and it's expanded to become a monster. What I do, let me go back to this one because it's so important. I say this every time because we know this, but we have to be reminded. The Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land, is it not?
Yeah.
It supersedes, and I used to teach criminal justice, it supersedes our entire criminal justice system, doesn't it? Which means if you violate the U.S. Constitution, what have you done? You've committed a felony, right? If you break into somebody's house without a warrant, what is that? It's a felony.
Yep.
So this isn't just a nice philosophical document that was written because it's warm and fuzzy and it makes us feel like Americans. No, this is law right here. Numero uno. So if the government breaks this, they've committed felonies, and we'll see that they have with impunity. I like another thing I do a little differently is a lot of people talk about the deep state and the shadow government interchangeably, and that's fine. I think that's fine. There's a lot of brilliant people that are talking about the deep state and the shadow government kind of under the same umbrella, and I support that. Dr. Corsi talks about. I'm in Dr. Corsi's book, and he put that in there because he's a brilliant guy and he's really open-minded to this stuff. There's other books. I think The American Deep State by Peter Dale Scott, another book I'd recommend, but he calls it the deep state. Now, the only reason I have a different take on that is because I come from the belly of the beast. I come from the secret agencies and I worked with every single one of them. So I know there is a difference between the shadow government and the deep state, and it is an important distinction. You can combine them together because they work together in kind of a matrix of secrecy, but they're different. The shadow government, then we got the deep state. The shadow government functions with the power, the unbridled power of the matrix of secrecy. Massive matrix of secrecy, and I'm going to get into that, show you in detail how that thing works. The deep state functions through money, power, and greed with the military-industrial complex, which is real, gets more real every day. The average MIC CEO makes $27.1 million a year, so that's just the CEO, and they're all bound by secrecy agreements. They're two different things in my view, and let me explain why. The shadow government is the secret, concealed parts, any government agency that functions under the shroud or the power of secrecy. That's the shadow government. CIA, NSA, DIA. And I'll show you some of these, and I'll show you where it comes from. This all started back, if you remember, the Council on Foreign Relations. A lot of you are probably aware of the CFR 1921. The CFR put together and created the CIA. The CIA was birthed by CFR members. Two of the prime members of the Council on Foreign Relations, which still exists today and still sets our foreign policy and is non-elected and does a lot in secret. The Council on Foreign Relations was staffed by Philip and Catherine Graham, the owners of the Washington Post, or some of the originators of the Council on Foreign Relations, the creator of the CIA. Maybe that explains why they still have a relationship today, along with Jeff Bezos. Yeah, it does. The National Reconnaissance, these are the satellites, the birds that are flying over us, and I won't go there because I wouldn't last long if I did. The National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, another part of the shadow government, completely operates in secret. Believe it or not, and I'm sure you do, the NGA, working together with CIA In-Q-Tel, created Google Earth. Yep. So you think Google Earth is an independent satellite? No, it's connected directly into the shadow government and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Do you think the government's not taking pictures of your house from space? Right in there, man. This could be 8 hours. We could go so deep into this, but we don't have the time. Okay, the Department of State has its own secret entities that function overseas in conjunction a lot of times with CIA stations. They do have shadow government capabilities. The Department of State, I have to say this, I did a lot of internal work with the Department of State. They are so penetrated by espionage, it's not funny. I'm riddled. The Russians are all over Department of State. Now, if there was a State Department person, they'd probably start going into convulsions. But I did investigations in there, counterintelligence stuff, all over the place. It's a mess. God help Mike Pompeo, man. You know, who I understand is a pretty good guy, by all accounts. He's a Tea Party guy. Department of Homeland Security, of course, we know the secret stuff that they do. JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, that's the president's own private secret army that nobody knows about. If something's going down in Pakistan or Yemen, the president can summon JSOC and send them over in secret to take care of that issue. Now, is that a bad thing? I don't know. I used to be on a counter-assault team, and sometimes they're good, you know, as long as they stay within the confines of the Constitution. But that does exist. That's part of the secret government. That's kind of the military arm. And then we have these shadow government agencies that we have just seen weaponize their intelligence, violate the Constitution, and commit felonies. Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I don't know if that's what Operation Justice March was partially about, but the FBI, their directors have committed felonies. And I'll show you exactly. The movement that is going on now is pushing for them to be criminally charged, as they should be.
So, with President Trump doing, draining the swamp and everything.
Yeah.
And then again, you still have all these agencies, and then again, he's trying to drain the swamp.
Yeah.
Right there, right? And he's done a pretty good job so far.
Better, the best since John F. Kennedy, let's put it that way.
So how long,
See what happened to him,
do we
huh?
have to put up with these people?
Let me put it this way, Donald Trump, like none of us, is a perfect man. We all know that. I love some of his tweets. I think they're hilarious. Others, I wish he wouldn't have tweeted them, But I know what he's doing. He's going around the press block because it would be filtered. He knows that. It would be filtered. Whether you like his tweets or not, that would have been filtered through the mainstream media, and he's going around them. That's kind of brilliant. So he knows what's going on. The swamp is so huge, so extensive, and has been around for so many years. It's got 20 and 30-year careerists in it. To drain that swamp, nothing's impossible. Most you can do is do it some damage, which I think Trump is doing. You can do it some serious damage, and more than anything, in my humble opinion, is educate everybody of what the swamp is. Okay, if you know what the swamp is and how illegal and felonious they are, and there's a movement which is happening across the United States, people are eventually they're going to get fed up, and they're going to start voting some of these booger heads out of office, both in Congress, the Senate, even at the state level. But first, we got to know what the beast is before we can kill it, because we need to find its weak spot, and that's kind of what I'm all about. Okay, we've seen the NSA weaponized big time. The 1.5 billion bits of information that they collected on you and I, our cell phones, and our texts. They lied about that. They were collecting our texts. Under the new NSA Freedom Act, they're supposed to have stopped doing that. They have not stopped doing that. What they've done is, it's called traffic shaping. I'll try to stay focused because I could go off in so many areas. The NSA is now doing traffic shaping, which means they're collecting our information at overseas locations outside of U.S. law, but they're still doing it. So don't let anybody tell you the NSA has stopped. Not only that, all of that information that they collected on us, even before 9/11, by the way, is still stored at the Utah Data Center. Well, I don't care if I've had people say, I don't care if they're spying on everything I do. It's like, you moron, you know? I don't care that they're violating I don't care that they're grossly violating the Constitution. Oh yeah, well what about that tax return that you cheated on? Lockheed Martin collects all the IRS information and gives it to the intelligence agent. Did you know that? So if you cheated on your taxes and they decide you're a target down the road, they just go to the NSA Utah Data Center and they do a search on you and they pull that out and they can bust you, put you in jail for 5 years. So I don't care if the NSA's been spying on me. You know, that's kind of a ridiculous thing to say. But I've heard it several times. You guys, some of you probably heard it.
I said it.
Yeah.
I like the new line about now saying that it's unconstitutional, that they're not really.
Boom.
I don't really care. I mean, I'm
Boom.
as public as can be, but I like the fact that now I can say.
Yeah, it's a felony.
It's unconstitutional.
And it's illegal. That's right, exactly. You betcha. You betcha. Okay, so let's go on with this a little bit and get down into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts, and then I'm going to get into Hillary Rodham Clinton a little bit. And she's a lot deeper than most people think she is, and I'll show you what I mean by that. All right, so we're going through this, and we worked our way all the way up to the FBI. James Comey has committed a felony. We know Andrew McCabe has committed a felony. We know that, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page have both committed felonies. Now, they're both still working there. That could be because they've been rolled, you know, and that's why they still have their jobs. I mean, there are things that happen that we don't see that are below that. I'm not real happy with Jeff Sessions, but you would hope he would be doing something like that. Okay, so the FBI has weaponized intelligence. They have committed felonies. I'll show you exactly where and why. And they've abused NSA surveillance. They unmasked Susan Rice, Samantha Powers, the UN ambassador, unmasked over 260 names of Americans from NSA surveillance. What the heck is the UN ambassador, Samantha Powers, doing with access to NSA information, unmasking members of the Trump team? UN ambassador, what the heck? Now, Susan Rice was the National Security Advisor. They have access to that, although she lied about it and said she never did it, and later on unlied. And she made a complex spreadsheet of all the Trump people and their names unmasked, you know, and they were after Trump and his team, pure and simple. So the NSA has been grossly abused. NSA is tied to Silicon Valley at the hip. I was talking to somebody. Google started off with NSA funding and CIA algorithms. Facebook has backdoors and regularly gives intelligence information to the CIA. The CIA's branch In-Q-Tel, which is what connects with Silicon Valley, is involved with every single major Silicon Valley social networking company in this country, taken over by the shadow government. So is social media safe? Well, I think we're kind of seeing that. No, it's not. Not at all. We understand that the shadow government has taken over the U.S. Patent Office. Somebody was talking about this earlier. They've taken over the U.S. Patent Office, and the Department of Defense And the intelligence agencies, if there's a patent that they want, for example, backdoors on chips and phones, if there's a patent that they want, they can come in and take it from the patent designer. Just take it legally. National security, boom. Just take the patent, and they've done it multiple times. Remember the Rose Law Firm with Hillary Clinton? What kind of office was that? It was a patent office. She was a patent attorney. You can trace her dark deeds all the way back to patent law, federal patent law in the Rose Law Firm. Anyway, that's a whole nother 3 hours. All right, we continue on. This one, I call this the central node of the shadow government because it has been so out of control since 1947. An estimated 7 million people have been killed in CIA coups and mostly failed operations. Now, I come from there. That's why I said I'm recovering. I did some noble things. I did a lot of ignoble things. I had some things to repent for. But this needs to be taken apart and put back together properly. Its covert operational, dark operational, unconstitutional activity needs to be eradicated, and it needs to be turned back into what Truman intended, and that's a legitimate intelligence gathering organization for the United States government, which it no longer is. And it breaks into houses. And the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, is coming out against Trump almost daily. He's now a CNN correspondent. What a surprise. Calling Trump names, saying that he should be impeached. I can tell you from being inside there, CIA directors and directors of national intelligence are non-political. They are not supposed to come out and make comments about a former or current president. That's not their job. It never has been their job. The only person that has ever done that in history other than these guys is, guess who? Allen Dulles, who despised John F. Kennedy after Kennedy said he was going to break the CIA, splinter into 1,000 pieces. Allen Dulles formed his own secret band of former CIA officers, and I'm probably I'm one of the only CIA officers that's former. It says a lot of things. The CIA was directly connected in at least the cover-up of the JFK assassination. At least the cover-up. Guess who they put in charge of the Warren Commission's investigation into the John F. Kennedy assassination? Allen Dulles. The most wicked, he was connected to Nazi Germany. He brought Nazis in the United States. He had friends in the Third Reich. He was torturing, doing all kinds of stuff. And that's who they put in charge. That's why Kennedy fired him. And they put him in charge of the Kennedy assassination investigation. That's how the shadow government works. All right. Mainstream media. I'll show you. Everybody knows that the mainstream media is not reporting the truth, or they're omitting the truth, or they're flat out lying. CNN being at the top of that list. I'm sorry, Jake Tapper, but it's just the way it is. Why? They've been as connected to the CIA going all the way back to their membership, and there's a lot of them still on the membership of the Council on Foreign Relations. They are not an unbiased media source. Duh. But I think we've all probably seen that pretty directly. When we lose our major media, we lose one of the fourth pillars of our constitutional government, and we've lost it.
Kind of quick question, the CIA
Yes.
and the CNN, since you're on it, my understanding is the CIA actually plays almost 24/7 CNN everywhere in there.
Yes,
still
that
true?
is, I can say from being in there, yes.
I mean, that's just,
That's the main news source. Nothing classified about that. I sat in a lot of centers, and CNN was on 24 hours a day. Yeah, that is a fact.
crazy.
Good question, by the way. All right, so let's move on. Now, the deep state, and this is just me, having been inside from the CIA and NSA and other things. This is the deep state, and I'm not disparaging anybody that puts them together, because they are connected together in a matrix, and you can't talk about them as one and the same. I'm splitting them in two because I've seen how they both operate. But the deep state itself is made up of these. Remember Eisenhower, his last speech he gave, be very concerned about the establishment of a military-industrial complex that winds up running this country. Guess what? It's here. And he originally called it the Military-Industrial Congressional Complex. And they talked him into taking the congressional part out. Because he knew way back then that and I'll show you this, the military-industrial complex is tied right in with Congress at the hip, to the tune of $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 of contributions a year. John McCain, for example, that's why he loves war. They go right into their re-election or super PACs. So Eisenhower nailed it way back then. The MIC is made up of the defense contractors, massive, and I'll show you some of these. Intelligence contractors, most people don't know about. I don't know, I may be the first one, who knows. Hopefully there's others out there. I'll show you what the intelligence contractors do, and shocking. Military industrial complex lobbyists run Washington, D.C. through the power of money and greed. They can either create or destroy a congressional, Congress or Senate career. Make or break. They are trying to destroy a president right now. Foreign lobbyists, Saudi Arabia might as well have a seat in Congress. That they're so influential with their billions of dollars that they give to Hillary Clinton, congressmen, senators, and others to affect, when she was Secretary of State, by the way, to influence their decisions in Washington. You give somebody $30 million, you think maybe they're going to, as Secretary of State, rule in your favor and send you weapons and planes like Obama did, Predator drones? Yeah, that's what they did. All right, the Treasury Department, which has become such a business entity, it is connected at the hip to Wall Street itself and all of Wall Street's hidden offshore accounts with billions of dollars that we don't know about, that our government has hidden in certain places, connected directly to the Treasury Department. Notice I have system in red with a dollar sign, because this is money, power, and greed. This is not secrecy. See, that's the difference. Okay? The Federal Reserve, that's a whole nother 3 hours. Created in 1913, that was the original destruction of our Constitution. Because the Federal Reserve, as many of you probably know, is not federal and it has no reserve. It's a private agency and it's made up of foreign banks, not American banks. And everything it does is in secret. Its foreign board is secret. And its audits are secret. Everything the Federal Reserve does is in secret. And you know why? Usually when the government does something like that, it's because it's unconstitutional, illegal, and they don't want the people to know about it. 9 times out of 10. But we lost our economic constitution with the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913. You think the CIA uses the Federal Reserve and foreign banks? Yeah. BCCI, anybody hear that? Laundering money. HSBC, I'll get into that, and James Comey, who was on the board when they were doing their dirty deeds, should be in jail. But Deep State, the International Monetary Fund, came out of the Federal Reserve. The World Bank, connected to the Federal Reserve. The IMF is now issuing what are called special drawing rights, or SDRs. It's a digital currency. They and Obama especially were pushing for an international global digital currency through the IMF, and they're actually using SDRs right now with some Belgium, some other countries. And that's part of globalism, the global economic order, which exists. Okay, let me speed it up a little bit. Now, I want you to see this, and then I'm going to get into what's going on currently. The CIA and the intelligence agencies are supposed to only have a legal function outside the United States, are they not? They're not supposed to be spying on us, are they not? They're not supposed to have an economic power or influence over the American citizens, are they? No. They have a foreign mission only. I mean, we were briefed that from the very beginning. Inside the United States, this is the complex of secrecy. 10,000 secret sites within the United States post 9/11. Not even Congress knows where all these are. There are 1,271 new secret government organizations created after 9/11 inside the United States. There are 1,931 large, huge private companies like Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, and others that are functioning, doing in top secret intelligence work inside the United States. And I'll explain in terms of the population what that means. That we know of, 4,800,000 Americans hold a top secret clearance. That we know of. Okay, so you think any of these people are going to challenge the shadow government when they're retired, their family, and everything else? Heck no, I know droves of them. Oh, they think it's terrible, they hate it, but they're not going to say a thing about it, you know.
Did you say top secret clearance?
Top secret, yes. Top secret.
Is that like the Q?
Q would be top secret Q. Q is a subcompartment. It's like it's a branch of top secret. You could say it's one level up. Yeah, Q clearance would be, I gotta be careful here.
Department of Energy.
The Department of Energy has Q clearances. If you work at a nuclear facility, you got a Q clearance, which is just on top of your top secret for DOE stuff and some NSA stuff and other things. So yeah, that's right. And I'm not going to the SCI side here. I can't. If I want to still breathe, let's put it that way. 854 top secret. They're within the military-industrial complex and what I call the secret intelligence industrial complex. I'll show you in a minute. There are millions of Americans working for these companies and these government agencies across the United States. And what is most chilling about that is every single one of them is bound by what I used to execute a secrecy agreement or a secrecy oath, which says you will not discuss anything that you have access to that's classified, or you will be terminated and possibly go to prison. So what they do is they get these millions of people bound by that agreement, and if they see something illegal or unconstitutional and they've got the nerve to say something about it, they hold up that piece of paper. I know because it was done to me. They hold up that piece of paper and they say, you talk about any of this, you sign this, you could go to prison for 20 years. So do you think anybody's going to say anything about any unconstitutional activity that they see? No. Unless they want total destruction, or unless they're crazy like I am and happen to love the Constitution.
That's what I was going to get to.
Yeah, exactly.
So what you're telling me, you're not too bright.
I'm a moron when it comes to
I'm trying to put this together.
If you go back and look at the first thing I released, and I hadn't come out completely, at least so they could see who I was, the last thing I said was, you don't mess with a man's family.
Right.
They messed with my family.
Absolutely.
I mean, I loved my kids more than my own life, and they were poisoned. You don't do that. I was ready to die, go to prison. I'm seriously. You don't. That was my line in the sand. You don't do that, but they did. Now, if anybody decides to have the kahunas to violate this, then they'll hit him with that. The state secrets privilege, the ultimate authority of the federal government. And if we have time, I think we do, I'll get into this. They did this to me. I've got evidence of what you did. I got tape recordings. I got signed affidavits. I've got samples of the toxins that you put in there. They're forced to mediation. They have to mediate because I had the goods on them. And then what do? They invoke the state secrets privilege and seal the case from anybody, including Congress. Anybody, including a congressman that accesses that information, can go to jail. Yeah, and they use this all the time. There's a movement coming out to expose, this has been used thousands of times. There's a movement coming out now, people are starting to come out and expose that it's been used to shut them up as whistleblowers in the intelligence community. It is the most tyrannical power that our government has. It was used to silence cases against the NSA domestic surveillance program. A group went in, sued for the NSA information on the domestic surveillance program, and guess what they invoked? This. Shut it all down and sealed it. Once it's sealed, no one can ever see it again.
Are you familiar with JTF MAGA?
The what?
JTF MAGA.
JTF MAGA, no.
Apparently they are members of the intelligence community who consider themselves to be Christian and whistleblowers.
Oh, those guys.
Yes, those guys.
Yes, I am.
You are familiar with them?
Yes, I am.
All right.
And I can tell you that they're really starting to kick it. So just put it that way. Yeah, I mentioned before earlier that there are former and current intelligence officers that are coming together now, and yeah,
one of them.
Yeah, we got to be careful because it's pretty cool. Finally, I'm going to get a bumper sticker that says I was talking about the deep state when the deep state wasn't cool. I mean, we thought I was going to be arrested any night. That went on for 4 years. Yeah.
So Kevin,
Yeah.
4.8 million top secrets.
Yeah.
Of those, I mean, a lot of them are DoD, right? So, of those, how many would you say are actually contributing to the nefarious affairs that you're speaking of?
All of them.
Boom. If I would say, I'm a big fan of the military and Department of Defense and Air
I'm sorry,
Force.
that's crazy. And
Why is it crazy?
I have a top.
Well, hold on.
secret
Let me
clearance,
answer that.
And my job was to help our troops to stay alive. That was my job.
Yeah.
I was not participating in any of this stuff.
We're
That's why
talking
it's
about.
crazy.
We're talking about. This is the difference, guys. What we're talking about is the people that have a top secret clearance that are using that for the intelligence agencies for a purpose of surveillance. Okay? Top secret clearances, for example, I'll give you a real simple example I use in the book. Troop movements going into Afghanistan. That's classified. You reveal that, you're going to get our troops killed, murdered. I work with a lot of, especially in the Air Force people with top secret clearances that are dealing with the nuclear threat. So just because you have a top secret clearance doesn't mean you're a bad person.
right.
Okay, I mean, seriously. I know people right now, good people that have top secret, that are doing honorable things. That's a good point. Both those points are good, but the difference is we're talking about people, I'm talking about intelligence officers who have seen the abuse, the weaponization of secrecy. That group.
What portion of the 4.8 million are
Well, it's the, you know, the Department of Defense is so huge. I know the exact figure for the agency, and I can't say that, but I could say that probably 50% of those are probably DoD.
If I know you're gonna rob a bank and I'm sitting in a hole, does that make me complicit?
Well, if you're working for a bank robber, if you're a bank robber, yeah.
I know you're gonna go rob a bank. I'm watching TV eating Cheetos, and I know you're gonna go rob a bank.
I had some Cheetos last night.
Watch it. You can get arrested for that.
Am I complicit?
You are complicit. But see, let's not get off on a rabbit tail. Let's not get off on a rabbit tail. We got a lot of stuff to cover here. Do you see the difference? Okay? Army, Navy, Air Force, especially the Air Force, has got top secret clearance, and they're honorable men and women. They're doing good national security things. And I make this point in the book. You can't broad brush this, and anybody with a clearance is evil, because that's not true. We're talking about the weaponization of secrecy. We got that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Now, this one, the Secret Intelligence Industrial Complex. Not many people know about this. It's never been called this, at least until this briefing. There is a Secret Intelligence Industrial Complex that is as powerful as the military industrial complex, made up of Leidos Holdings. I've worked for some of these people. SAIC. I've worked with SAIC before. SAIC helped put together Trailblazer in the NSA domestic surveillance program, and they botched it. Lost $7 million, I think, in taxpayer money. No disciplinary action. They're still getting government contracts. But Bill Binney and Kirk Weavy have come out about Trailblazer and their whole domestic surveillance thing. So that's their thing. So CACI, the torture program, General Dynamics just acquired. Anybody heard of CSRA, one of the biggest tech companies in government? General Dynamics just acquired them, and I'm getting to my point here in a moment. Booz Allen Hamilton, home of Edward Snowden. Booz Allen Hamilton is huge and international. Booz Allen Hamilton has been around for so long that they actually helped build the intelligence service for Egypt. Helped them put their whole intelligence service. I mean, that's how long Booz has been around. And then you've got Lockheed Martin. Now, Lockheed Martin does a lot of different things, but I can tell you two things they do. They are they do about 80% of the surveillance work for the CIA and NSA. Lockheed Martin also has a surveillance program where they monitor everything you do with the IRS. Your telephone communications, everything you do with the IRS in writing, every interaction you have with the IRS, they're doing a surveillance program on you for your IRS transactions. Anybody have a problem with that? I do. And I try to be honest with my tax as best as I can, but I just don't like that, you know?
Yeah.
I don't like the IRS anyway. But that just goes to show you, this is $50 billion annually in our tax revenue. We have to remember, everyone, these are our taxes. We are paying for this stuff. It's not like the government has this big pot of money that they're using. This is coming out of our paychecks. That's important to remember. We're paying them to spy on us. There's something wrong that really is not right about that. This is the big part. They do top secret work. They're unelected. It's unreported. They make major foreign policy decisions, deployments of sophisticated surveillance operations and other things. They don't report to Congress. They only report to these agencies. They're not elected. The CEOs of these companies that make these major decisions about going to war are not elected, and they're not connected to Congress. There's no accountability to the American people or to Congress whatsoever for what these billion-dollar companies are doing, hidden in secret. It's the military-industrial complex, but on the secrecy side. Can you see the difference? Yeah. Two different things. Most people don't know. SIC, I didn't pick that acronym, SIC. but the Secret Intelligence Industrial Complex, no one knows about that exists. Okay. Now I want to touch on this. Let me say, guess who the largest arms dealer in the world is?
George Bush Sr.
Yeah.
USA.
Us, the United States. Sadly, I had something to do with that, and that's why I'm recovering. We're the biggest arms dealer in the world. More than the Soviets. Yeah, we are. We're pumping guns and bullets and missiles all over the world all the time. It's big business. Why do you think the military industrial complex loves war, man? Makes them billions. Let me show you how they do it. The Congressional Armed Services Committee. Everybody still with me? I know this is a lot of stuff. You're going to go out and things are going to be leaking out of your ears. So if you walk away with maybe 40% of this, we're doing good. Okay. This is eventually going to wind up. It's going to wind up in the public soon. So you'll see it again. Congressional Armed Services Committee. There are 48 senior members, congressmen, and senators that decide how much the defense appropriations budget is going to be. Budget for Department of Defense, the budget for the CIA, NSA, and others. 48 congressmen and senators. Guess who contributes to their campaigns? Lockheed Martin,
Nice.
General Dynamics,
Beautiful.
Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, Boeing. These are just the biggest. Booz Allen Hamilton, what a surprise. $1 trillion with a T in annual spending total. Now some of that is good. It's for the military, and Trump just increased military spending for the troops and benefits and things, and I think the military families are really suffering. Good stuff. Okay, the rest, not so good.
I have a question.
$46 billion in foreign arms sales. Yes.
Are any of these groups part of the SES, or is that a completely separate group?
You know, there's a lot going around about the SES now. I worked under the SES, and I have to disagree a little bit. You know, the people are spinning it. The SES is a pay grade. It's not a secret cabal of men and women out there trying to rule the world. One of the guys that helped me with this book, helped me expose, was an SES. In any federal agency, you get to a GS-15, and you can't go any farther. That's the cap. And if you're really good, they'll promote you to the senior executive service level. It's a pay grade. I mean, sorry, I know I just bopped a bunch of bubbles there, but I worked under. It's a pay grade. I mean, sorry.
My understanding of it is, and maybe it's in misinformation, is that they can't be fired and they can be part of it for a short amount of time and then leave and keep the
That's
same
true.
pay grade even
That's
after
true.
they left.
Yeah, it's like a lifelong appointment. That is true. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, governmental employment after 3 years is basically lifelong unless you commit an act of breach of faith and fire.
It's hard to fire anybody.
Well, except for the CIA. A lot of people don't make it past their third year in the CIA because you go through your first polygraph exam, your third year in, if you got a CIA clearance, which CIA is separate from the other clearances. But they hit you in your 3 year with a full polygraph and background investigation, and if you've done some funny stuff, and it happens a lot. So if you see, I won't go open a can of worms, but if you see somebody saying, well, I worked for the CIA for 3 years, and then I moved on to the Department of State. I'm like, yeah, I bet you did. Anyway, because I was a polygraph examiner towards the end of my career in the counterintelligence investigators. I've been through, seen a lot of those. $46 billion a year in arms sales from the U.S. of A. That would be us around the world. And anyway,
That money doesn't go to the government though, right?
the $46 billion.
That goes to the private company.
Yeah, it goes mostly to the MIC, military industrial complex. Yeah, who makes the bombs, bullets, and missiles. Yeah,
Why
right.
is Carlyle Group not on there?
I put the big dogs. Carlyle Group is they actually manage the funds of several of these. I used to work for USIS. I was a program manager for a MIC contractor, and Carlyle owned us as well as some other companies too.
I was a qualified investor and everything. I cleared the qualifications for Carlyle.
For Carlyle, yeah.
Carlyle is, I quibble everything that the U.S. is the largest arms dealer in the world. Carlyle Group is.
I would
We
agree.
essentially own.
A lot of the arms dealers, including the one I used to work for. Yeah. They have been accused of being one of the biggest fomenters of war, and in that regard, and they profit from it heavily. But that's where most of our business was. Yeah.
My sister worked for them right when they were starting.
Are you from Carlyle Group?
Yes,
Yeah.
Bill Timmons.
Did she? Yeah, back in the beginning.
And she got out because she started to figure this
Yeah.
out.
With USIS, and you won't hear me knock any company. I worked for USIS. I was the program manager for the Department of State Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program, and we trained foreign anti-terrorism units, police units all around the world. So I don't want to knock them, but the point is that you're exactly right. These big groups are selling these arms, and they're getting them from these military-industrial corporations. That's how they survive. And I know, having been a program manager, you either go out and you get that arms contract, or you lose your job as a program manager for that. So they have to get these things the way the system is set up, or they either get fired or their company loses a bunch of contracts. Here's the kind of upsetting part. Each one of these contractors gives every single, individually, every 48 members of the Senate Appropriations Committee an average of $700,000 a year into their reelection and into their leadership PACs.
Isn't that illegal?
No.
No.
Shouldn't it be?
No, there's a congressional mafia that's actually a legal mafia. There's a book out there, Peter Schweitzer, written about Congress. I'm drawing a blank on the name. You should get it. Read it. Anybody remember? Gosh. Anyway, he writes it about Congress, milker bills and all that stuff. It's a legal mafia.
Secret empires?
No, I heard that about that one. You can look up congressional corruption and Peter Schweitzer and you'll find it. And after you read it, you'll probably want to take a shower. But anyway, they contribute $700,000 to every single one of these people a year, including our buddy John McCain. I call the shadow senator. I do not like this guy. I'm sorry, I just don't. He gets a year into his reelection and PAC $694,508 from these contractors. No wonder John loves war. You know, ching ching. You know.
He was a Navy pilot.
I think he just likes it.
Yeah. Plus he's anyway. Yeah. I think there's a dark side to old John. I think like Star Wars. But yeah. What were you saying?
He was a Navy pilot who was captured and under communist.
Did they call on Songbird or
Yeah,
something like that?
they did. Yeah. There's some.
Each contractor that amount?
Yep.
Or all of them together?
Each one individually of the 48 senior members of the Armed Services Committee get an average of $700,000 per year for their reelection
On
campaign
paper.
or their
That's
leadership.
what we know on paper.
And that's our tax. We are paying for it. We don't want to pay for it, but we are
No, I'm saying there's also an underground black market that you're not talking about.
in Congress.
In the United States and all over the world.
Oh yeah. Well, we get into human trafficking. That's another lecture, which is tied into what we're going to go into in a little bit. But yeah, I've got some friends that are experts on human trafficking, which Donald Trump is kicking the sap out of, by the way.
Over 10,000, right?
Over 10,000 arrests, an executive order, and they just nailed, what was that website that was trafficking? Backpage. They just nailed Backpage. And do you hear that on the news media anywhere?
No.
They're saving the lives of kids and from pedophiles and did CNN report what a great no?
They don't care.
Schmucks. They don't care. They want to destroy the guy.
Is it licensed to profit?
What's that?
Licensed to profit?
No. Maybe it'll jump into my brain here in a little bit. It's a orange book with white letters. I know I can see it. He wrote "Throw Them All Out," and then he wrote. That was the second book. The first book was Extortion. Extortion.
Yeah.
Peter Schweitzer. Read it and have the shower running, so you can take a shower. I mean, it is a legal mafia on Capitol Hill. I mean, there's a few. I like Rand Paul. He's a constitutionalist still. One of the few. The rest of them are as dishonest as.
Trey Gowdy.
I like Trey Gowdy. He's a great orator, but the problem is, in all the great speeches he gives, nothing ever happens.
All talk, no walk.
You know? Yeah.
What about Paul Ryan?
I don't like Paul Ryan. I'm glad he's leaving.
First up.
I mean, why wouldn't Paul Ryan join up, whether you like Trump or not? I always have to say that because I get all kinds of letters and emails. Whether you like Trump or not is irrelevant. If Paul Ryan wants to drain the swamp, he should be right in there with him, and he's not.
That's correct.
So,
He's part of
He was against it at first.
what's that?
He was against it at first.
Yeah, he was. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, him and a bunch of other rhinos. Yeah. I'm sorry, I just have a sense to be honest. You know.
That's okay, that's what we like it.
We agree.
Okay. I give this to some groups that don't necessarily. You know, it's funny that the Republican National Committee never has me come and speak. And I'm still trying to figure that out. But anyway, Dana Priest, William Arkin wrote a book called Top Secret America, another must get. I don't know if they got a Pulitzer, but they sure should have. They may have. They should have. They wrote this. The top secret world of government created in response to the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001 has become so large, so unwieldy, and so secretive that no one knows how much money it costs, how many people it employs, how many programs exist within it, or exactly how many agencies do the same work. The Congress doesn't know. Constitutional problem with that? What's the only representative of the people in Washington that we got left? If we should have left. Congress and the Senate. It's the way the thing was set up. They don't know, have no idea. So what's really running the government? I'll show you more about this later. Who's really running the government then? The shadow government, deep state. a separate secret government that operates outside the Constitution, and I'm going to prove this. That's a pretty strong statement, but we're going to prove it.
Are they the ones that did 9/11?
Whew, well, you'd have to ask that, wouldn't you?
What was the question?
What about 9/11? All right, I have to tell you this. I'm a criminal investigator. That's part of my background, right? So I look at everything from a criminal investigation standpoint. And I looked at 9/11. I taught this in college from a criminal investigation standpoint, and it doesn't pass the muster. If you broad brush it as a terrorist attack, it covers up a whole lot of evidence.
Right.
If you look at it from the perspective of a criminal investigation, there are all kinds of problems. There's 100 problems with the 9/11 Commission report. Now, I'm just telling you, objectively. Now, I'll tell you later what my opinion is. It was not just a terrorist attack. Was Tower 7 hit by a plane?
No.
No.
How did the 40-story building collapse?
It was a free fall too. There wasn't even any resistance, and it collapsed from the inside. If you got any doubts, watch that film, and then come back and tell me that fell because there was a fire on the 5th and 6th floor or whatever. You know?
Did that building house the largest domestic CIA office outside Virginia?
Outside of Langley, yes.
Possibly.
Not possibly, yes. Well, yeah.
He said. That's what he said.
Go with him.
So, I mean, come on, people. This is the problem. When you cross, there's a psychological line most Americans can't cross. If 9/11 was not just a terrorist attack, but it was done from inside help, to cross that psychological barrier, most people will not do that. Because if you cross that line, when you cross that line, my gosh, would our government or someone connected to our government or someone unknown to our government would do such a horrible thing?
Somebody would speak.
Or is gross negligence? Either one of those options, you can no longer trust government ever again as long as you live. Now, I don't trust them anyway, but so that's just there is a lot more. There's some wicked. I'm going to show you some of this wicked stuff in human form. It's very concerning. Have we created a monster with this shadow government?
Yeah.
Big time. Is it out of control? Yes, it is. Can we ever bring it back into control with the movement that we're starting? We all right, let's keep going. We got a lot of stuff. Now, I put this in here humbly, so please understand. In my book, I was able, through Freedom of Information Act, to get my actual CIA performance appraisals in there. I didn't do that because I think I'm a tough guy. I did that because I knew that the CIA and others were going to come out and say, he never worked there, it's a sham. Well, yes, I did, because as soon as I got the performance appraisals from the CIA, I put them in the book before they could do anything about it. Okay, so I was a CIA branch chief manager, protective agent on the DCI security staff, and that's where William Casey became a Christian on his deathbed. And there's a pretty cool story there. I was an internal counterintelligence investigator, internal staff security investigator. Forgive me, anybody that's ever had to take one of these. I was a polygraph examiner. I executed a lot of polygraphs, which is like worse than going to the dentist. Anyone's ever had one. I was an overseas human counterintelligence officer, and I was a program manager in the military-industrial complex. And I put, just for the trolls out there, my actual performance appraisals in the book. And I did that to shut the trolls up, because I knew they were coming, and they did. Some of them came from the agency itself. And I know I know their lingo. Dave, I wrote back and said, I know who you are, Dave. Anyway, so that's why that's in there. That's the only reason. And that shuts a lot of critics up. I have a YouTube channel with this. I have this whole lecture in 3 different videos. And I get trolls on there all the time. And anyway. All right, real quickly. The shadow government controls every branch of our elected government. That's important to realize. When I say the shadow government specifically, and the deep state through lobbyists, but the shadow government specifically controls Congress. It manipulates congressional hearings, and I'll show how. The only agency that refused to provide any information about what it knew before 9/11 was, guess who? The CIA. It was secret. It was classified. So no one knew what the CIA was doing before 9/11 because they refused to turn it over to the commission. And the CIA has that kind of power over Congress. They have that kind of power. I know. I was there. They have that kind of power to withhold information that was supposed to be given to the American people for the biggest murder in our history at one time. And the CIA wouldn't. It turns out that 2 of the alleged hijackers were CIA assets, for starters. But They had no right to do that in a constitutional republic, did they? No, but they did. It's the kind of power they have. They withhold clearances from congressmen and senators. Rand Paul, who is the only courageous one I know of, comes out and says this stuff. Well, Senator, I know you'd like to look into what the CIA is doing in Syria, but you just don't have the clearance for that. You know, you're not cleared. You're not a member of the Gang of Eight, so sorry, we can't. You don't have the need to know, or you don't have. They pull that all the time, all the time. Classified documents to conceal illegal activity. I'll show you some not so funny examples of this in a little bit. They classify budget info. Did you know that the CIA's budget is secret? Not even Congress and Senate knows what the CIA's budget is. Aren't those our tax dollars that they're using? That's right, they are. Isn't that Congress? Aren't they our representatives? How our taxes are spent? Isn't that? Yeah, but they don't know. No one knows what they spent. They block congressional scrutiny by this. I've seen it personally with my own 2 eyes. They will block Congress from any information they don't want it to see by invoking the state secrets privilege with impunity.
Does the Committee on Intelligence have access to the budget?
You mean the Senate Select and the HPSCs? The Gang of Eight does. The HPSCI and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and the House Permanent Select Committee, the HPSCI and SISI, 8 members do. The other members of Congress do not.
So that's the compromise the United States has made, where other foreign nations run their intelligence agencies completely in a secretive fashion. Our interface is supposed to be the committee.
Which is a sham.
Right.
And I'll show you why it's a sham. The HPSCI and the SISI, forgive me, they're window dressing. And I've seen that personally. Matter of fact, I know of cases that the HPSCI and the SISI were supposed to be investigating that were piled behind a locked door almost to the ceiling that they weren't even touching. Now, if you were a congressman or senator, would you want to dig down into the lower intestines of the CIA and ruin your whole career?
No.
Unless you're an exceptional person, no.
You're trying to save the nation, you might.
Yeah, don't we wish we had people like that?
We do. That's why we're here.
Well, boom, exactly.
So how do you solve that problem then? If you're going to protect your national interests and your secrets, you can't expose that information to someone like Cynthia McKinney, who's going over to Iran, right?
Yeah.
So how do you protect that information from a woman like her?
It's a double-edged sword because you remember Thomas Drake, who exposed the NSA surveillance program and went internally to do it, and they destroyed him, raided his house, hit him with espionage charges, and were going to put him in prison for 20 years, and he committed no crime. Yeah. Now he fought it. They got him off with a misdemeanor, and he's still looking over his shoulder. One of the top code breakers in the NSA is now working at an Apple computer store. They ruined his career. And Thomas Drake's case was what Edward Snowden used as an example as to why he didn't go through the system. Yeah. That's called blowback, you morons. You know, you destroy people's career for trying to be honest, and then you get the biggest espionage case in history because of what you did. That's how stupid. When people get up there, like at the agency, I used to have to do this. You're at the top of the intellectual evolutionary chain. Did you know that? 3,000 people apply for the CIA here, and only 2% gets in. That's you. You know, and everybody's head swells up, and then they do really stupid stuff because you turn them into a narcissist. You know.
Well, you mentioned Cynthia McKinney. How about a Secretary of State who's got a server in her backyard?
We're getting there, brother. Hang tight. Control of the White House blindfolds the president in covert operations like Iran-Contra, for example, and Iraqi intelligence. Provides false intelligence. George Tenet did that on purpose. There was no intelligence, good intelligence. There was suspicions, but there was no hard intelligence, and they darn well knew it. And we entered into a war in Iraq. They're teaching this in military colleges now. The single biggest military mistake in U.S. history was the invasion of Iraq. Destabilized, and Russia said that, Putin, and he's right. Not that I'm a Putin fan. Yeah, well, George and W. Completely destabilized the Middle East and put Iran in charge. It was supposedly our enemy. Now, to trace back, it was the CIA that overthrew Iran, so that came back too. But anyway, we won't go there. So they control the Congress, the White House. They will influence the re-election of the president. Are we seeing that now? Are we seeing the shadow government and or the deep state trying to destroy Donald Trump and make sure he never gets re-elected?
Yeah.
How did Donald Trump get elected?
Us.
The 35 in this room?
They poked the bear, man. The bear that out there got poked and got mad and people went out and voted.
Yeah.
And there's more of us than there are of them, even though they try to make it look like it's the opposite. Anyway, they also manipulate, the shadow government does. And so what am I doing here? I'm proving that the shadow government manipulates our elected government. That's it. Now, most people, I mean, God willing, when you walk out of here, and myself included, will be a little bit more informed than when we walked in. Because most people don't know this. This is actually happening. Judiciary. FISA judges, that is a secret Supreme Court. Now, is it necessary? Yes. If in the case of Uranium One, the Soviets were targeting Hillary Clinton, and they were targeting the government, and they were targeting the FBI to acquire our uranium. That's just a counterintelligence fact. Okay? So you want a FISA warrant on the Soviets if they're spying on government officials? They can take their, yeah, you do. Do you want a FISA warrant to spy on a presidential campaign or a sitting president? No, you don't. And lastly, state secrets privilege. Controls the entire judicial branch and will shut a case down like that, supposedly forever, with one exception. Anyway, see how they manipulated elected government? All three branches. This is developed since 1948. They have it perfected. They have penetrated the entire governmental system like a squid, and they're everywhere. Okay? Now, here we go. Let's get into the meatier, potato-eater parts of these, if that's a word. I think I just invented a word, didn't I?
Sounds good.
Donald Trump comes in and challenges the CIA. I don't think that JFK was only shot by Oswald. He said several years ago.
Secret Service.
I don't think, I think a lot of what the CIA does, and especially the NSA, is unconstitutional. Donald Trump was that 5 years ago. He's making these statements before he even was going to run for office. There were ears that were listening to that. So he gets elected. And Shadow Senator Minority Leader Chucky Schumer comes across on Rachel Maddow's show, and he says this. They, the CIA, FBI, NSA, intelligence committees, if you cross the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So, you know what he's saying right there?
Threatening.
If the President of the United States crosses the intelligence community, they will destroy you. That's what he's saying. And he knows. Yeah, he said it in public, on the Rachel Maddow show, in public. He wanted it out there. Yeah.
You know what's good about that? Is we have Sunday.
Yeah, that's right. That's right on that day, buddy. Yeah. What a chilling statement, you guys. Seriously, you ever heard that said about a president ever since here? That's Alan Dulles. Have you ever heard that said about any president since JFK?
No.
That they would like to take him out, and in my humble and meek view, they will do it physically if they have to. And I'm sorry, I just know the way it works. They will, if they can't take him out by destroying his character, impeaching him, using the 25th Amendment, then they'll try something else.
Well, they just got up to bomb Syria. What was that?
Well, that's a whole nother subject. The last chemical attack, there were some questions about that. This one, not as many. Whatever your opinion of Donald Trump, and I think most people in here supported because they poked the bear. And this is the way I like to put it to people. That is irrelevant. Well, Trump's a narcissist. He ran around with his wife. He stands on his head at night. I'm sorry. We're not talking about Trump the person. We're talking about Trump the president who is shaking up the shadow government and literally kicking the sap out of the swamp. You know? I don't care if he drives a Volkswagen sitting on his head. If he's breaking this stuff up, that works for me, man, because I've seen how badly and people have been killed by shadow government operations. I think that so far under Obama, we droned 8 wedding parties, going after one suspected terrorist, killed everybody in the wedding party.
Why?
Yeah.
It wasn't on the news.
Oh, amazing! I know.
Are there enough good guys in the government?
What's that?
Are there enough good guys in the NSA and other?
There's a lot of good guys in the NSA. There's a lot of good guys in the CIA. I'm a big fan of the military because I think there's more good guys. I still have friends in the CIA doing some noble things. The NSA, especially Department of, yes, there are. Tens of thousands of them. And what I saw, the higher I got up, is you have kind of a layer. And I'm talking the intelligence agency here, so don't misunderstand me. you have a layer of all the good employees and even the ones in the field that make these things work, and then you get up into the inner annals of, let's say, the CIA. I liken it to a castle with dark chambers, and each compartment is another chamber within the chamber within the chamber. You get to the top of the CIA. I was on William Casey's detail. I was able to get this through. I lived in his house. We were with him 24/7, and William Casey was engaging in operations we had knew nothing about. One of which killed 84 innocent women and children when they went after the wrong terrorists. We lived with the guy. We didn't even know. You see what I'm saying? So until you get into those upper levels, you don't know what about MK Ultra? Are they still doing that today? I don't know. I never saw that. I work with all 4 different directorates, and I never personally saw them continuing the mind control program. I did. Some people are convinced they do. All I can tell you is I don't know. I never saw it. What about UFOs? I get these emails. Anyway, let's not go off on that. I can tell you that Air Force technology connected to the intelligence community in terms of aerial aircraft is about 50 years ahead of what we see out there. They got some seriously cool stuff flying around. Are there UFOs outside of that? Very possibly, yeah. I'm just not an expert on that. I'd talk to someone else on that. So there is an internal Cold War within Washington. Has anybody noticed that? Yeah, and it's nasty and it's getting uglier by the day. The CIA, John Brennan, with a torture report, hacked into Senate computers on Capitol Hill and spied on the Senate. The CIA spied on the U.S. Senate inside the United States because they wanted to see what was in the torture report, which was more than waterboarding, by the way. And so, by the way, is that a felony, anyone?
Yeah.
Spying on the Senate, surveilling your bosses. The Senate Select Committee, that's his boss.
Unconstitutional.
Thank you. Which makes it a felony. The Senate Select Committee on Intelligence is his boss, his constitutional boss. And he spied on them on their computers on Capitol Hill. Was he indicted?
No.
Was he charged?
No.
Is he in jail?
No.
What's he doing now?
Threatening people.
Threatening Trump verbally. I mean, why would he be threatening Trump like that unless he's got a skinny skeleton somewhere in his closet?
Yeah.
And he's a contributor for MSNBC now. Or
Imagine that.
Clapper went to CNN, he went to MSNBC. Yeah, isn't that amazing? From one shadow to the next. So when they caught John Brennan committing a felony, you know what his response was? And this is classic because I've seen it so many times. Mr. Brennan, you committed a felony and you spied on the Senate. His response was this. Oh, your people access classified CIA information and they could go to jail for that. So I wouldn't go. They're like, what did you just say? You just committed a felony and you're threatening us because we looked at your information on ours. But that's what he did. See, that's what the CIA does. I liken it like this. Remember the Wizard of Oz? They tried this on me. Oh, big, powerful Oz, you cross me, I'm going to destroy you. And then Toto pulls the curtain, and there's this little guy in there pulling the levers. That's the CIA. We're big, powerful, we're going to destroy you. No, until you stand up to them, they're like, oh gosh, this is going to go public. That's the way it works. The NSA tapped into conversations between Congress and the Prime Minister of Israel about Iran. NSA tapped into the conversations, spied on them. We know about this one because it's still going on. The NSA clearly spied on President Trump, his campaign and transition team, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail here in a moment. The FBI withheld Fusion GPS documents from their boss on the HIPSI and the CISI, the intelligence committees, and they're still withholding documents. The FBI is still, and I understand Rosenstein is finally starting to turn some of Strzok's and Page's emails after stalling for almost 4 months, stalling against their boss, they're finally starting to release. Brennan took the Darst dossier, which we'll talk about in a moment. Are y'all still with me? I know this is a lot of stuff, man. And we're just good. You're having me good. I like that. I love that.
Oh, man. See what Cheetos do?
15 minutes.
Yeah, is Thomas here? I was going to say, Thomas, you mind if we go over? Because it looks like we will. Anyway.
No, you're fine.
We're good? Okay, there's Thomas. Yeah, thank you. You're the boss. Brennan took the dossier information, which we'll talk about in a moment, and intentionally leaked it to the press and called it intelligence. Operation Mockingbird, controlling the press, manipulating the press. The director of the CIA did that. More to come. Clapper and Brennan have just signed an America's brief. There are some people, Democratic DNC people, actually suing Donald Trump for the DNC email hacks, claiming that Trump ruined their reputation by those emails being released, as if Trump hacked into them. We all know that that was a hard drive pass. It wasn't a hack at all. But what the bizarre part is, Brennan and Clapper have written a brief supporting that lawsuit against Donald Trump. Yeah, two former CIA directors, director of national. Why would they do that?
Satan.
Skeletons.
Satan. The devil.
And we know about this because I'm going to talk about it in a moment. That guy should, if he doesn't go to jail, he should go to church on Sunday. Protect Clinton. What's that?
You think they'll let him in?
Well, maybe if it's a deliverance service. NSA unmasked Trump. We know about that. This is just more attacks on the president. They leaked classified White House communications. We now know that was Andrew McCabe that did the leaking. And after he leaked, he put out a memo saying, "Better find this leaker because this is illegal," making it look like it was someone else.
He's bright.
Yeah, he's not the brightest candle in the pub. Public statements by CIA officials. Michael Hayden. Some people refer to him as Elmer Fudd. Michael Hayden called Donald Trump a useful idiot. I think it was John Brennan said that he was, I guess, so ignorant he was easily manipulated by the Russians. No evidence of collusion, no intelligence to back that up. It was an opinion statement by the director of the CIA against a sitting president. Director CIA, I know because I work for several. CIA directors do not make political public statements like that unless something's amiss. The CIA leaked the dossier. We're going to talk more about this. Clapper leaked to the media himself. And Pompeo is leaving. I predicted this to my wife. I said, he ain't going to last long. Because he's a pretty decent guy from what I understand. So you want to take Mother Teresa and put her over a mafia organization, how long is she going to last? I'm not saying it's Mother Teresa, but you take somebody with even a sliver of ethics and you're going to pick him the director of the CIA, they're going to lie to him. I've seen that happen. But if he ever starts digging, which may happen, he's like, "Get me out of here," you know? So he's out, to be honest. The lady they're putting in, no comment there. I mean, we'll see how that works out. But Pompeo's going director of state where I think he belongs. But I didn't think he'd last there long. Special prosecutor, I'm going to get into detail on this because I'm going to get into Hillary Clinton stuff that probably the first time this has been released, but people need to know who that lady is. And I'm not talking politically either. I'm talking in terms of the shadow government. The special prosecutor, Robert Mueller, was appointed by Rosenstein, and it's a fraudulent appointment because the special prosecutor, one, has got to have a specific scope by definition for that investigation. Specific scope. If it's Russia collusion, it's that only. He can't go anywhere else. Is he going somewhere else? Yeah. Yes, he is. So he stepped out of that one. The second stipulation for a special prosecutor is there has to be a crime has been committed. Has there been any crime committed? No. With collusion. No one has proved collusion. No one has proved a crime. No one had done that before they appointed Mueller. This is an operation. Oh, Robert Mueller is one of the most upstanding men of the poppycock. I'll show you that's not the case in just a moment here. No, he's not. Robert Mueller is out for one person, and that would be Robert Mueller. Russian dossier. All right. I'm going to start speeding up a little bit because I know this is a lot of stuff. What about the news media? What about it? Yeah. Yeah. Why doesn't the news media report some of this? Or why doesn't the news media?
Probably because of who owns them.
Which news media?
You're getting warm. Who controls the media? Because someone's controlling them, aren't they? Obviously, they're controlled by somebody because they're deleting the news, twisting the news, and publishing outright lies, and trying to destroy Donald Trump with everything they've got, and ignoring the things like the child trafficking things that he has done to stop that, completely ignoring it. Why? Who's controlling it? There's a matrix. There's two things.
Absolutely.
There's two things. Remember Operation Mockingbird, CIA Operation Mockingbird, where the CIA was paying journalists to go out to ABC, NBC, all of the major new networks and seed CIA stories into the mainstream media to deceive the American public into thinking that the CIA is honest and like James Bond. And, you know, there are things that the CIA has done that James Bond would never do, by the way. They ain't no James Bond. But that's what Mockingbird was all about. They paid journalists until George Herbert Walker Bush. I'm not a fan of H.W. I think he was around back when JFK was taken out, and there's evidence, but they're not going there. So George H.W. Bush came out and said, we're going to stop paying journalists. We got caught, so we're not paying journalists anymore to report fake stuff about the CIA. Not doing that anymore. What they didn't tell people was, but from now on it's going to be voluntary. And the CIA has a whole lot of cool ways to make things voluntary. Like Jeff Bezos, give you a $600 million contract if you work with us. What's Bezos going to do? He's like, where do I sign? You know, they'll never talk about this. That's fine. $600 million. That's how they do it. They get them with contracts, and then once they got that contract and they've signed that secrecy oath, they're done. All right. Today, the CIA is quid pro quo. What that means is, when you see the New York Times and especially the Washington Post say this, sources have told us that they think there may be information that Donald Trump met with the Soviets in Moscow. Sources told us, or sources from the inside. You know who they're talking about? Sure. The CIA. Whenever you hear an unnamed source, quid pro quo, the CIA says, look, we'll give you this information. Don't report on anything negative about us, or we're going to pull that access, and you're not going to sell papers because this stuff sells. That's how they work it. We give a little bit to you. You don't say anything bad about us. We keep giving you these sources and make you look like you're connected to the CIA. That's how they do it. Is that manipulation of the news media? Yeah. Dang right it is. The Pentagon Military Analyst Program, the guy got a Pulitzer Prize for doing this. Before the war in Iraq, they paid generals, a couple of which I know, with a script to go out on all the news organizations and make it look like the Iraq war was the way to go. And that they had legitimately found weapons of mass destruction, and they knew where they were, and they even had schematics and a little bottle that they gave to Colin Powell. He's still pissed about that. But it was a disinformation campaign by the Pentagon. And he got a Pulitzer Prize, the journalist that uncovered that. Monopoly, I think you were mentioning this. Monopoly Wall Street now has corporate. Wall Street now owns the media. There are 6 major corporations. That's the equivalent of about 20 CEOs control all of our major media. 20 people, 6 major companies control it all. And they're connected into Wall Street. Wall Street is connected into WHO, Department of Treasury, which is connected into WHO, the Deep State, which is connected into WHO, the shadow government. Now let's go a little bit farther with that. What about this guy?
That's what I was waiting for you to bring out.
Media Matters. George Soros contributes millions to the mainstream media and mainstream media causes. And what do? They parrot his message.
He's got the money.
He's got the money. Billions and billions and billions he's got just to throw around. And he throws a lot of that to these major news media corporations. So you think they're going to report against what old George likes? No, man, they're going the George route because that's where the money comes from. And then you got the poor little journalist down there at the bottom of the food chain. You want a career? It's like Hollywood. You want a career in journalism? Better not rock the boat. Cheryl Atkinson's come out. Awesome job exposing the news media. She was a reporter. They even broke into her computer. You want to survive as a journalist? Let's just get this straight right now. Do not rock the boat. And as your editor, you better darn well report what I'm telling you or you're gone. So down here, you don't get mad at these people. Their whole career is vaporized unless they do this stuff. Because that's how the system works on the financial side. But it's even worse than that. What about the CIA? The editors, and I saw this personally, have had for the last 71 years, unwritten agreements with the CIA, going back to the Council on Foreign Relations and the Washington Post and beyond. They have an unwritten agreement with the editors. The editors do with the CIA, like I said, quid pro quo. You take care of us, we take care of you. You cross us, we cross you. It's an unwritten agreement. It's still there. It's even worse. The CIA has a management network connected to every major news outlet, and there's a book by Douglas Valentine out there called The CIA and Organized Crime. Anybody read that?
The CIA as organized.
CIA, yeah. I'd read another book I'd recommend. The guy did, having been in there, and the guy did it from open source or from the outside. Masterful job. But he makes this statement. There is a network of cooperation, and he's right. The pressure the CIA exerts on the media equals political warfare against the American public because they're altering the news and the perception of people that hear what they put out. Which amounts to, in Valentine's words, CIA domestic counter-subversion operation against the American people through the media, in essence. And I think he's right. They did that with my book. I've seen it personally. The CIA has, I don't know if you guys know this, the CIA has a publications review office, and they have a desk officer assigned to every major news media outlet. And that CIA officer's job is to influence that news media outlet and do the quid pro quo thing. They also have liaison officers for sectors in Hollywood, so that Hollywood will only produce pro-CIA movies. Have you seen a negative CIA movie lately about drone in wedding parties? Or when's the last time you saw it? Since what, 3 Days of the Condor, I think? And what was that, 30 years ago?
What about Body of Lies with DiCaprio?
Body of Lies, and you could make the case that
The Body of Lies.
Body of Lies is good, yes. And then The Recruit was so-so. Has there been one that has exposed a shirt? I haven't seen. No, Body of Lies. Yeah, I did see that. That was good. It was good. I haven't seen one that goes deep into what they've done.
No.
That movie was pretty.
It was good. Yeah, it was good. One of the
shows
best.
false flags and rogue people.
Yeah.
And
There's another one that's even better than that. I'm drawing a blank. Doggone it.
But there's shows like Alias that make the CIA.
Alias in 13 hours, not 13 hours. 13 hours. I did the thing with Tonto. Not 13 hours. The other one about the capture of Bin Laden. A lot of which was just absolute BS. The CIA fed them classified information for that movie, and I'm drawing a blank. It's when they went in and got Bin Laden and Zero Dark 30. Thank you. Zero Dark 30 is a lot of untruths in that movie. A lot of things the CIA did not do in that movie, and they did not find Bin Laden through waterboarding or intelligence.
How did Hillary Clinton crush the path to 9/11?
Well, then I got a slide coming up that may answer that. So hold that question, and because that's a good question. Okay, so we know that the CIA has influence directly on the news media. The CIA will always black out. Well, I mean, why do you think yours truly hasn't been on CNN with an interview about the abuse of state secrets privilege? Think they're going to have me on there? This is Kevin Shipp, who exposed the state secrets privilege. Not going to happen. But they will not. They black out CIA, for example, Operation Phoenix, where they assassinated 46,000 people in Vietnam with assassination pistols. Actually happened? I know it did. Believe me. And
assassination pistols.
So they built little special assassination pistols. You just walk.
Like the one they used on JFK.
Huh?
Like the one they used on JFK.
Well, I'm not going there.
Are you going to talk more about Phoenix or?
I know I'm not going. There's too much in Phoenix, but you know about it, and
well, the Valentine book gets
yeah. And as a matter of fact, he does. Yes, and he has a real good part on that. A massive cover-up of bloodthirsty murder of innocent civilians. See a movie on that anywhere? I think a pretty good movie, but do you think you'll ever see it? No.
Actually, Valentine says Phoenix is coming home to America via, for example, the fusion, law enforcement fusion centers.
Yeah, that's right. And I agree with him.
He had entree through William Colby to everyone who was part of Phoenix.
Yeah.
He really ended up knowing more about Phoenix than any one person within CIA probably did.
You're right. Wow. You're absolutely right. Benghazi was not about, as bad as it was, the attack on the embassy. That wasn't the issue.
Oh, the issue was getting
The issue was they were illegally running guns to the Free Syrian Army, the Syrian radicals, Islamicists who were going up into Turkey to attack Assad in Syria. And Hillary Clinton was secretly running guns to those squads without Congress's knowledge, using Saudi Arabia and Qatar as cutouts to move the weapons in there.
Wow.
That's how connected she is to the shadow
government.
government.
Why was Stevens killed? Stevens
was killed because Stevens knew about the program. There was 3 attempts on the embassy beforehand. This is my humble opinion. It was a pooch. They were so stupid they didn't expect the compound to be raided like that. I've seen state they can be stupid like that. And he was killed by accident because why would they want the attack on the compound and Stevens' death to raise this up to a national level?
They did.
Why would they want that?
Some movie that they saw in Egypt, and they had a bad Friday night, so they had to go take it out on somebody.
Why would they want it to reach that level? They did not want Stevens to get killed. They did not want the gun running to come out. That was what they used to call a pooch. Well, your opinion.
I appreciate it.
Your opinion. No,
it does somewhat distract from part of the reason for getting rid of Gaddafi, who had spoken strongly advocated creating a gold monetary unit for the
Boom.
North African countries.
That's right. Boom. Excellent point. Gaddafi was going to abandon the U.S. dollar as a gold standard. He was going to go back to a gold-backed system throughout the Middle East, and that was the end of him. Brilliant point. Right on, man. That was a big part of it. Hillary being behind it, and B.O. I like those initials better than anything. B.O. Barack Obama. All right. Now, on all of this, there's a cultural side that's very disturbing. You mentioned the occult.
Yeah.
The occult is all through this. Satanism is all through this. Pedophilia is all through this global network. Yeah. And a lot of this is coming out. We're putting some of it out. Veterans for Child Rescue is putting it. Trump knows about it, but he's been kicking it, man, lately. He and Scalise, before he was shot, they're arresting. There's been 10,000 arrests. They arrested 698 professors who were into child pornography. I mean, Trump's out there he's doing it. But globally, with population control, she's the biggest advocate as the rest of these of what? International abortion up to the 9th month.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not pulling a moral lecture on you guys, but this is a 9-month-old baby here. Does that look like a lump of flesh where you can pull the head out and cut the spine with a scalpel and yank it? Is that right in anybody's mind in here?
No.
Well, it's right in her mind. Not only is it right in her mind, she wants the U.S. to pay for that in other countries.
It's a sacrament for them.
A sacrament. This is a cult. This is evil at its core. Really. I don't know how else to describe it. Also, she's a big advocate of this, which is happening, teaching transgender studies. Planned Parenthood is paying for transgender studies, and the reason I'm pointing out is this is part of globalism. Planned Parenthood is funding transgender studies to 2nd graders and 6th graders.
Wow.
How to have anal sex,
Oh my God.
2nd graders. How gay and lesbians have sex with each other, method-wise. And the fact that little Johnny may be a girl, and not to hold that back. If little Johnny, you can see the half man, half woman with the beard here, standing up in front of a class, kid with a bow tie. They're doing that to our kids.
Where's the NEA then in that?
It's in there. You guys understand, when we're talking about the shadow government, deep state, and the global elite, there is a dark side that is so disgusting, most people can't even go there. So, why is Hillary Clinton getting away with this? How is she getting away with this? She should have been in jail a long time ago.
Well, who's gonna lock her up?
Who's when the fox is in charge of the hen house? That's a rule. Yeah. CIA's protecting her. John Brennan, who was Obama's fixer, because somebody tried to go into Obama's passport and see if he really was born in Kenya. Brennan was in charge of that private company at the time, had the 2 people fired, scrubbed those passports for Obama, and was subsequently appointed Obama's Undersecretary for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism, and then Director of the CIA. Now that's a whole nother lecture, but so he's a fixer. How about James Clapper out there pounding on Trump right now? Lied about the dossier, leaked to the press, said he was a Hillary Clinton supporter. How can these people support somebody who's a known criminal? I mean, seriously. Some of these people are supposed to be law enforcement officers. Christopher Steele, we'll get at him later, the former MI5 guy that made this ridiculous dossier. James Comey, Hillary Clinton's fixer. I'll explain why. He's a law enforcement agent, and he's left this lady alone. Not just left her alone, but he's protected her from prosecution. Once again, you got to ask why. What the heck? WTF or whatever. Then you got to McCabe, who actually falsified the FISA affidavit so the NSA could spy on the presidential campaign at Trump, the Trump's transition team, and unmasked 260 names of Americans. John McCain, the shadow senator, is the guy that disseminated all of the dossier information to the FBI and the CIA. He's got some skeletons in his closet, and we just won't go there, but I do not like that guy. And all of this dossier stuff, the information came from, guess where? Russian intelligence.
What?
The FSB, which is the replacement for the KGB. That's where the information came from. Now, if they're so worried about the Russians taking over the election, why did they get their information from Russian intelligence? Check me out. Check me out. Go to SarahACarter.com or any other credible site and just check me out. And that's how bizarre this is. And of course, NSA joined in, 260 names. Susan Rice and Samantha Powers. Susan Rice unmasked names. Samantha Powers already opined about this, complained about this. Susan Powers unmasked 260 names as the UN ambassador.
Wow.
What the heck? All right, the largest charity, I'll have to go through these because there's, the Clinton Foundation, man, is one of the biggest criminal enterprise scandals in American history. And they're just starting to crack that nut. There they are, the smiling pair. Oh, Bill Clinton's always, oh, it's like, you know, I don't know whether he's getting goosed or what's going on there, but he's always got that kooky grin on his face. DO leadership, Comey, Mueller, and Rosenstein, all protected, has protected the Clinton Foundation. It was under investigation. And all three of these FBI supervisors protected the Clinton Foundation from being criminally investigated. Dropped the investigation when the evidence was everywhere. And then you got to ask yourself, why? So let me go through this. It's a global charity fraud. There's no evidence the IRS provided final approval for the Clinton Foundation. There's no evidence of an IRS filing or IRS approval for the Clinton Foundation anywhere. Doesn't exist, including the United Kingdom. There's no documents in the United Kingdom. The millions that the UK contributors gave, there's no documentation that it's a legal entity, because it's not. The legal filings are missing in, I think, at least 20 U.S. states. In 20 U.S. states where they've been conducting business, there's no legal filing that they are a legal foundation. Yeah. Anybody know this?
No.
Oh, it gets worse.
How do they have a bank account?
Well, I'll show you. This Rod Rosenstein was doing the investigation of the Clinton Foundation at the time, and he missed a $37.1 million donation, the Clinton Bush Haiti Foundation, CBHS, I believe it was called. A $31 million donation that went to a post office box in Baltimore and disappeared when their only headquarters was in Washington, D.C., their only office. They still don't know where that money went. Did Rosenstein investigate that? He was in charge of the FBI's investigation? No, it didn't do a thing. Just let it go. Clinton Foundation tax filings do not explain anywhere in the documentation what Bill Clinton did to get paid $17.6 million working for the Clinton Foundation. There's no accounting of what he did to make those millions of dollars in the Clinton Foundation. None. No evidence, no documentation. This is a freaking mafia. You know? I mean, John Gotti got worse treatment or better treatment than these people should have gotten the same treatment John Gotti did, is the point. And of course, she took money from human rights abusing governments. Saudi Arabia was a big one. Algeria, Qatar, Oman. Saudi Arabia alone donated $10 to $25 million to the Clinton Foundation. And we all know that they got Predator drones and a bunch of other stuff. But the money actually went into the personal Clinton Foundation and into the pockets of the Clintons themselves. I think Chelsea was making $600,000+ a year for being on the board of directors of the Clinton Foundation, something like that. Yeah. Australia is now under investigation because Alexander Downer, former Australian official, gave $25 million of Australian tax money into the Clinton Foundation. While Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, maybe to curry favor from the Secretary of State and get a little bit of pro-Australian stuff going on, maybe? Wow. Australians are just starting to get real mad about this, I know, because I've talked to some of them. That's their tax money that Downer spent without them even knowing it. Into the Clinton Foundation. I wish it got better, I really do. Multiple frauds, U.S. foreign countries, defective filings made under oath across state lines using, they called it the Clinton charity. It's charity fraud, huge charity fraud by any other name. The family's illegal control of the Clinton charity. No family should be in control legally of its own charity. That's a violation of federal law. They are. Clinton and others, Bill Clinton put people in positions in the IRS and the DOJ, people that they knew from past dealings would be favorable to the Clinton Foundation and would not investigate. It's been set up since 1991. Put people in place that when this foundation took off, they knew darn well that Mueller, Comey, and others would not investigate. It was intentional. Comey, Mueller, and Rosenstein have all been aware of these criminal activities, as I've said a few times. They made $79 million in one year, and they only declared $49 million, and no one can figure out where the rest of the millions went, other than in their pocket. Because the FBI has never investigated the fraud. Charity fraud and other crimes, a bunch more. I would recommend somebody right now, Charles Ortel. I think it's charlesortel.com. I would write that down. He is a brilliant man, former asset investor. I think he's a stock investigator, pretty astute guy. charlesortel.com. He has done probably the most detailed investigation of the Clinton Foundation of anyone I have ever seen. So if you want to know the detail about the Clinton Foundation and its crimes, go to Charles Ortel's page. Seriously. I'm telling the guy is just phenomenal. I just want to put a plug in for him there. He deserves it. What's that? He's still alive, yeah. He's still breathing, yeah. I think he's on every Sunday. Every Sunday he's got a show where he goes into this stuff. On Crowdsource the Truth, I think is the name of the. Yeah.
You know the name Larry Nichols?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I sure do. So, the Clintons targeted Uranium-1, and I'm working my way towards the end here. The Clintons were targeted by a Russian intelligence operation to acquire a large percentage of U.S. uranium, because Putin wanted the most control of the world's total uranium supply. It was an intelligence operation. It is clear that they targeted the Clintons and especially the Clinton Foundation in doing that. No question about it. Now, look at this. During that time, the Justice Department was already investigating the Russians for espionage, extortion, and blackmail inside the United States. There was an ongoing Department of Justice, FBI investigation going on while the Clintons and Mueller and others were pulling off the Uranium-1 deal. The FBI had an open investigation on Russian intelligence and manipulation of the Clinton Foundation. And they still did it, Mueller included. The Russian nuclear officials routed, the head of Rosatom, routed money directly into the Clinton Foundation, millions of dollars, while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. And the way you do it with charity fraud, because Joe Biden just did this, is Hillary Clinton didn't put that money in her name, she put it in Bill and Chelsea's name. See, like Biden just did with his son, with the Chinese government or some $1 billion thing.
That's right.
So you put the money in the Clinton Foundation's name while you're Secretary of State, and so you're getting the money, but then you're kind of hiding it. It's called money laundering, basically. That's how they did it. Clinton Foundation accepted millions from foreign governments while she was Secretary of State, $25 million from Saudi Arabia into the Clinton Foundation while she was Secretary of State. I mean, there's laws against that. It's called foreign influence of a federal official. Was she indicted? Was she prosecuted? Has the mainstream media ever brought this up? No. Here comes the age-old question again. Why? Well, it's because it is a global initiative. Let's just put it that way. All right, the Russians, they assumed control of Uranium-1, $2.35 million into the Clinton Foundation. Bill Clinton got his $500,000 for his speech to the Rosatom Russian uranium-linked company. They got him, he got up there and opined about who knows what, and they paid him $500,000 for doing it because they were working him over for Uranium-1. So you've got, just in summary here, you have a former president who accepted $250 million in assets from foreign money while his wife was Secretary of State. Former president, Secretary of State, getting $250 million in assets from the Russian government and Saudi Arabia and others. I mean, it doesn't get weirder. Yeah, and so they came, 20%, and they came out and they said, what? Or no, first they said it never left the U.S.
Correct.
And they traced it, they said, no, it went to Canada, and they traced it again, and it went over to Asia. They don't know where in Asia, but the uranium went to somewhere in Asia.
What's funny about that is I have a friend of mine, her brother was involved in this.
Yeah.
And he was one of the ones that they got him for law.